just kind of became this thing where I had this reputation for I would box, so we would just freaking, it was bad technique, It's not like we knew what we were doing. It was like tough man, but I can freaking bang. I had a really good chin. I've always had a good chin. And I can just hit hard, man. So I was beating the crap out of my high school friends and my brother's friends and eventually my brothers. And that's kind of where it started, but yeah, that faded out after high school. I'd never even really considered fighting. I just remember the Ultimate Fighter coming on, and it was just so cool. I was just so in awe of those guys, Forrest Griffin especially, like his honesty towards his other fighters. I remember him calling out a fighter on the show, and he's just like, yeah, I think I could beat you. I think you're the worst fighter here. And he's just like being super honest and upfront with him about that. And like, it was just funny as hell to me. And like, just the camaraderie fighters have, like,
Yeah.
I feel like we're just kind of a goofy bunch. I feel like a lot of fighters are honest, not all of them, but they're just kind of upfront people, like they wear their emotions on their sleeves.
Yeah.
And I've just always kind of enjoyed that group.
So you said you trained for 3 weeks before you fought?
Yeah. I probably had.
What kind of training could you even do?
I mean, they would show me some jiu-jitsu stuff that didn't catch at all, and we were pretty much just fighting. They would throw combos at us, and we'd kind of go back and forth and drill a little bit, and then we'd just spar. Back in the day, that was pretty much most of training, or at least half. We would just spar all the time, and everyone would spar everybody. But yeah, I was doing pretty good against their guys that had been there for a while. They're guys that had been training for like a year or so and had a few amateur fights. I was sparring with those guys, and I was doing pretty good. I was always really good on the feet, like I definitely came natural. That part of it came natural to me, and I looked like I could definitely take a fight. And then I took my first fight, and I got smoked. I fought a wrestler, and he took me straight down. He didn't want to, punch with me at all. He took me down, passed him out because I didn't know what the hell to do. And then he punched me a few times. I rolled over. He took my back and choked me out. It was over in like under a minute, and everyone was there.
Happens.
What's up?
That happens if you don't train.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just was super cocky, and I knew I could box. I knew I had good stand-up, but I just got a terrible matchup. But, I mean, that's bound to happen in MMA. I was delusional thinking I was ready to fight, but I had a coach back then that was, dumb enough to let me. He even let me rep his gym, and I went out there and just got crushed. But I fought again a month later, and I just kept fighting after that, like I'd never really trained for my career. I just freaking jumped in the deep end. So I lost my first fight, but then I won 5 straight in like the next 5 months or something. I was like 6 months into my career, and I was 5-1, like all freaking knockouts. And, I pretty much looked like I was going to be a top guy when I first came out, but then I never really took the ground game that serious. Like I was one of those guys. Back then, a lot of guys just leaned into their strengths. If they weren't good at the ground game, they didn't want to get better at it, and they would just train striking all the time. And I was one of those. And yeah, it really backfired when I started fighting good grapplers. When I started fighting for like amateur titles, I was getting out wrestled and just ground and pounded. I was going to a decision a lot, or I was getting submitted because my jiu-jitsu was just garbage, and I had a terrible attitude towards it. I could have been one of those guys on the bully beatdown, like I would never tap. Tapping's for cowards. Like that shit doesn't work. And it took a lot of humbling. I didn't learn my lesson the first time or even the second. I had to take a few losses before I finally figured out. The thing that changed for me was actually one of my best friends, Brandon. We met down in Colorado Springs at the Colorado Springs Fight Factory. This was probably 2008 or 2009, and he was just a blue belt.